Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hetvi, and in this video I'll be addressing what a grant proposal is and how you could go about creating one. Now, due to the amount of information this particular topic entails, I've decided to split the information across two videos. In the first video, so in this video, I'll be discussing what a grant proposal is and how you could go about researching for it, whilst in my second video I'll be focusing on how to structure and format your grant proposal, as well as providing you guys with a checklist of all the information you need to incorporate within your grant proposal. So for this video, I'll begin with just providing a brief overview of what a grant proposal is, followed by looking at how to plan and, more importantly, research and select an appropriate topic for your grant proposal, and lastly, to finish off with just discussing some of the key mistakes to avoid when you're creating your grant proposal. So be sure to watch this video right till the end in order to reap the most benefit, and without further ado guys, let's get started in today's video. So for all my friends out there who are unfamiliar with the term grant proposal, to put it simply, it means to create a draft of your research that you aim on conducting in order to gain funds from either an institute or a funding body. And usually you'll find researchers and scientists conduct a grant proposal in order to gain funds for their research by producing a summary of what and how it is that they aim on conducting that research. But more importantly, the importance and the benefit that that research will serve. So, either to the institute or at a broader scale to the community, or even the economic benefits that could serve to have. Now, the one thing to bear in mind is that a grant proposal is going to be unlike any other piece of work you've done till date, since you're not going to be basing your theory of data or studies that others have conducted, but rather looking at niche areas and topics where there is little to no information, and gaining a further understanding via your research. That's right, via your own research. And that is what will make it different from the other pieces of work that you've conducted. So, anticipate for it to be difficult in order for you to find journal articles or studies that correspond to what it is that you're researching on. And the more niche your topic is, the more difficult it will become. But of course, that will also serve to benefit you, because it will show and emphasize on the importance of your research and why your research is necessary to be conducted. So moving on to the example that I wanted to share with you guys. So as you guys can see, I've selected PubMed as the medium to search for my references, but you can of course select one that you're more comfortable with. If you require more support on how to search for references, or more importantly incorporate them within your work, then be sure to check my previous video, for which I'll place a link in the description box. But for the sake of this video, the topic of interest is going to be muscular dystrophy, and again, tailor your search according to your requirements. Now, the one thing I'd like to draw your attention to is that when you begin researching, focus on the most current and up-to-date articles that are published. I usually like to focus on systematic reviews and meta-analysis that were produced within the last year. However, clinical trials are also a great source to begin your research, since you will not only gain an understanding of where the current research stands, but also an understanding of what information we lack, where those limitations are, and where there needs to be further research conducted. So once you've found an article of interest, always skim through the abstract to make sure that you're familiar with the content and that it meets the requirement. Once that has been confirmed, move on to reading the full article. Now, I'm going to emphasize on reading the introduction, since majority of the time it will provide you with the background information required with regards to that research that they are interested in conducting. But more importantly, the need for their research. So why is it that they are conducting that research? Where are the gaps in the knowledge that their research can address? And that's exactly what you want your grant proposal to also address. Where are the gaps within our knowledge that your research can address? So here in this article, we're focusing on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, DMD, and the complication associated with muscle weakness that influences its prognosis. It refers to current management and the main cause of death, the limitation of the current treatment, and what they propose on doing about that, which is to analyze the prognostic factors in order to determine disease progression, which therefore can ensure appropriate treatment to be provided. Now, for your grant proposal, you will not need to be so detailed, but by having these factors incorporated briefly will make your grant proposal stand out, as it will emphasize on the need for your research. Now, you can skip through the method and the results section for now whilst you're selecting your topic of interest for your grant proposal, but when you've selected it, you might want to reflect on the methods and the way other journals have collected data to gain an understanding of how you can propose to achieve your aims and objectives. But for now, my focus will be on the discussion. So what does the data suggest? And as we can see, it implies that the ACE inhibitors are promising, but the evidence that they have gathered is weak and therefore requires further research. Likewise, the use of corticosteroid has been deemed important, but the appropriate age to initiate its use is still unknown, and the influence of factors like disease severity and progression on the use of corticosteroid is unknown. Now, from that example we've just seen, there are some great points that I could propose my grant proposal to be on. But just by knowing what topic or what aspect I want to focus on does not mean my grant proposal is done, nor does it get any easier from here. I'm not saying this to scare you, but know that it is going to be difficult because you've got multiple aspects to consider. You're going to have to do further reading from here in order to understand whether someone else has already addressed that aspect that you're considering, or the issues that you're proposing to investigate. Now, it's essential to understand that, just by knowing what has been published is not sufficient. It's just as important to know the quality of the evidence that they have produced. So you're not anticipated to produce something that is novel, as long as it's authentic and it's original. You could build up on current research that's already there. So, if I was to propose, for example, for my grant proposal that I'm going to be looking at ACE inhibitors with a larger cohort size, so with more participants, I'd be building on what current research has already proposed, which we've seen from the example I provided, that, it is, effective, but the evidence that's there is weak. So I'm proposing to kind of expand on that and to kind of strengthen the evidence that's already been proposed. Or, you could be looking at a different direction that's deviated from what the original research suggests. So I might consider looking at corticosteroids and, the appropriate age to initiate them. So, I may, look at participants from different age groups with different disease progression or different stages of disease severity. That's deviating it from what information we already have. We know that it's effective, but we don't know what age or, what disease progression or severity could have an impact and how that could have an impact on corticosteroids. So it's extremely crucial that you're asking a question, or that you're wanting to research something that no one else has questioned. And that is why you're going to have to do further reading around the topic that you've chosen to ensure that no one else has addressed those, because you don't want to, invest a lot of time researching something, focusing on something, only to find out that someone else has already researched on it and addressed the issue. It'll just be a waste of your own time. So it's extremely crucial that you do that further reading before you start to invest a lot of your time on that topic area. Now, I don't know who needs to hear this, but know that when you're doing your grant proposal, you're going to have to invest a lot of your time and you're going to have to do a lot of reading. And trust me, I know it's not easy, you will find it difficult, but there are a lot of elements that you're going to have to consider besides, your hypothesis question. How is it that you're going to achieve your aims and objectives? What method are you going to follow? What method, is going to be appropriate to address those aims and objectives? Are you going to incorporate participants, or is it going to be an animal study? Is it going to be in vitro or in vivo? How are you going to include your participants? What's your criteria? How come you decided that to be your criteria? Where are you getting your animal tissues from? Which animal are you focusing on? So there are multiple different factors that you've got to consider, and I will refer back to these, in my next video, where I'm discussing the formatting and structuring of your grant proposal. But be aware that you will have a lot of research to do, and it's something that I completely understand you'll find overwhelming to begin with. But, it's something that everyone experiences when they come about to do their grant proposal. I certainly did. So, don't worry if you're finding it difficult. Know that it is doable and know that you can achieve it. For as long as, you're planning it out systematically and that you're giving yourself and providing yourself with that time to actually engage in that further reading, it will really help you in the long run. And for the final segment of this video, I'll be focusing on the top mistakes to avoid when you are creating your grant proposal. The number one mistake to avoid is to have a very broad or open-ended question or hypothesis, because the more difficult it will become for you to then construct an aim or an objective that can appropriately address your question or your hypothesis. And that's why I would place emphasis on creating a question or a hypothesis that's very specific and focuses on a particular niche, because the easier it will become for you to then construct your aims and objectives that can address that question or that hypothesis. The number 2 mistake to avoid is the time frame that you have selected. Be sure that the methods that you have suggested to imply for your research is feasible to have been completed within that time frame. So be realistic about that. Be realistic of the time that it will take you to actually conduct and construct that method, collect your data and then review and analyze that data as well. That all has to have been done within that time frame. You will not be allocated some other time to do your review and your analysis. It all has to have been done within that time frame. So, be very realistic and think of, ways in which you're able to do your method within the duration you've been stated or allocated even, And lastly, the third and the final mistake to avoid is to forget about informing whether or not your hypothesis has been met in your conclusion. Often we get carried away with kind of the benefits of what the results have suggested, or how we could take forward the results that we've gained in order to improve clinical studies, or to provide treatment of some form. We forget to mention whether or not our hypothesis has been met, the aims and objective have been met, and it's extremely important to get across the limitations of your grant proposal as well as kind of the improvements that are required. So that is it for this video, guys. I really hope that you found this video useful. If you have, be sure to like this video, consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon right next to it to make sure that you're regularly updated with all my latest videos. Till next time, guys, take care. Bye!